Hi, my name's Jonathan Hicks, and this evening I'm joined by
Mark.
Steve, and we've just finished playing Tabannusi, Builders of Ur. Now, this is quite an important point because I neglected to build buildings in this game and did very badly, but a big part of the game, it seems, is building these buildings. You can see you've got white, yellow, and brown buildings, and the board consists of several key sections that are sort of indicated by the dice. So you can see you've got white dice here, yellow dice here, brown dice are over here, and that's because this is like the brown dice section. If you want to build buildings in this section, you need to spend brown dice. Now, brown dice, as well as the number being important sometimes, you don't actually roll them, but when you get dice, these are effectively resources, and you spend these dice to do things like building. So if you want to build buildings in the yellow section, you'd have to be spending yellow dice. There are a couple of other sections as well. There's the blue section with the blue dice where you're sort of putting tokens on ships, so there's watery things. And then in the green section, you're getting gardens, and there's this ziggurat or kind of temple-y thing where you can get lots of points. But in terms of actually how you play the game, you have a guy, so I can't remember what he's called.
Architect.
An architect. And at the start of the game, you can kind of decide to go wherever you want. So maybe you decide to go in the white section. But then you pick one of the dice. And the dice matters because it tells you where you're going to go next. So if I were to take the 2, this becomes a white resource, if you like. I can use that to, for instance, build things in the white section. But it also means that on my next turn, I'm going to go to the 2 section. Each of these sections are numbered. So the brown section is section 1, yellow is 2, white is 3, etc. 4 is the blue section, 5 is the green section. And if you pick a 6, you can actually go somewhere which isn't represented. So if you took a 6 here, you could go anywhere except for 3. So I picked 2. So my go goes in 2. And next turn, I'll be taking a dice from the yellow section and doing something here. After that, though, having picked the dice, you get to take the action. You kind of leave your apprentice behind to show you where you're actually taking your action, and you do the action of the section. Now, the 3 main building sections, so brown, yellow, and white, basically do the same things with some slight differences. So one thing you can do, effectively, you're going to be taking 2 actions from this set of 4 actions, and you can do the same thing twice. So this is proposed to build a building. So you don't actually build it, but I might decide I want to build a yellow building here, and I could put it here and say, I think a yellow building would be good there. You have these tokens you have to put on them, which are going to be important to indicate that it's yours. And then later on, you or somebody else could come along and build this building, which would be this action here. And you have to pay some cubes. So the main resource is it's got to be white cubes. So you'd have to spend 2 white cubes. And you spend them from your supply. You can actually build like here. These were sort of a combination of Mark and Steve were suggesting building here. I could come along and build this, and they effectively, because they didn't manage to build a building that they said was a good idea, when these are removed and we put the buildings out, they get to go up on these 3 temple tracks. But if I build it on my own proposal, then I don't get to go up on the temple track. So you're kind of incentivized to actually build buildings that other people have suggested. But I could build on this if I wanted to, and as I say, you pay the resources, and then you take the appropriate colour building. So yellow, Steve, do you fancy grabbing us a yellow building from the supply? And this would become a yellow building. And whoever builds it takes one of the houses. You have a supply of houses here, and you put it on. So because it's a yellow building, I would take this off the yellow section. And whatever you reveal, you get. Gold is very important in this game. It's a wild resource. You can use it as kind of any like colour dice in this sense. And then you take the house and you put it on, and now you own this. Now, why do you want to build all these houses? Well, there's various scoring phases are going to happen. Effectively, when somebody takes the last dice out of a section, then you're going to score that section. And the scoring is quite important in this game, but it's a little bit tricky. So depending on how high you got on the temples is like a multiplier. So in this case, I get very high on the white track. And so my multiplier, when we're scoring the sections, is going to be 3 for any white buildings. So you can see I have a building here. So this would be 1 white building, if you like, times 3 would give me 3 points. But if I had a larger size, so you can see purple here actually has a building. These, when they're joined, become 1 building. So this is a building of size 3. So purple will get 3 times his height on the yellow track because it's a yellow building. And purple got up to this point, so he would get 3 times 3 is 9 points. And he's got other buildings here, so you'd kind of add the points for those as well. So that's going to be quite important. Some things you're going to get when you cover it. So for instance, when you actually put the proposal down, maybe I put a proposal down on this one at some point. If I cover this space, you'll get 3 points. If you cover this, you get more of the tokens. You need obviously the tokens to put the proposal out. You can get gold. This will let you put another proposal out. There are these gardens and water tiles. Water is quite important because you can only put gardens where there's water. So you can acquire these tiles. That's actually another action of one of these sections. Instead of building a building, you can sort of use blue dice or green dice to get water tiles or garden tiles. Once you've got the tiles, you can then put them out, and you sort of have to extend the water. So the water's here, and you'd keep putting these out like this. And once the water's there, you can then put your garden tiles out once you've acquired them. And the garden tiles are quite important. You put your doodah on. You can see Steve's put some out here. And it basically increases the sizes of the buildings. So this yellow building here is actually a size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just add any gardens that are connected to it and it becomes part of that building. And they will actually extend all of the buildings around here. So this white building owned by Orange would also be of size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can get some quite big sized buildings with the gardens, which obviously when you multiply it by how high you are on these kind of temple tracks, it's going to give you a lot of points when you score the sections. Now, just a couple of other things then. The blue section is all like special abilities. So, for instance, on this one, whenever you put a token on one of the boats, this lets you go up on one of the tracks. So it's like a permanent special ability that will work for you. In order to take the action, you have to spend 2 gold to put on one of these boats. There's also a kind of bonus action. When you build a building, you can spend gold to go on one of these boats. But other special abilities might be when you put a token here, for instance, on a boat, you get 2 points. This one is you can flip your, what are they called? Packages? Parcels? Crates. So if you don't have a dice of the right colour, you can acquire these crates, and you can. I could flip this green one to like act as a green die when I need to spend a resource. And this lets you flip 2 of them back, because once it's flipped over, it's been used, but you can sort of get them flipped back, which can be quite handy. And there's a whole bunch of special abilities here. Now, the other thing you can do here is you can hand in blue dice to build houses. The houses go around the outside. When this section scores, you're multiplying the house by the number of tokens you've got on the boats. So because there's 3 orange tokens in this column, this house will be worth 3 points when it scores. This one would only be worth 2 points because there's only 2 tokens there. So that's the blue section. And finally, the green section is the last kind of section you can score. When you go here, there's a good way of getting gold. You can also spend green dice to put houses on the ziggurat track up here. And this is going to give you points for different things, and it's variable. You see these are like tiles are going to change from game to game. But for instance, this is getting, each time you put a house here, you get to put a token on here. And you can get 2, 3 or 4 points times the number of buildings you've managed to build. So Steve Purple did very well building lots of different buildings. So this one then managed to score him lots of points. This is getting points for having houses in the blue section. So all the houses around the outside here. And this one in our game was giving you points for spaces you got up on the temple tracks. So there's lots of different kind of combinations here you can see. But essentially, once you've taken your action, your guy would move to join you. And then on your next turn, you'll be picking one of these dice. Maybe I take 4. So then your guy would move to 4 to show in the 4 section, that's when you're going to be taking the dice on your next time. You take your actions here, your guy moves, and you carry on. Each time one of the sections scores, it sort of triggers the end of the first section, and after 5 scorings, we score all the different sections again, and most points wins. What do we think?
So, yeah, the game is just as overwhelming initially as that explanation suggests, if not more, because the range of options initially is huge. There's no dumbing down. This will hit people at AP Pro really badly, because your first thing is like, I could do anything on this board pretty much, and I have no idea where to start. You've got some ideas. You have hidden scoring cards, something where you want to build. There's end game scoring cards as well. So I suppose they do push you in some sort of direction, but it's still pretty overwhelming. Past that though, yeah, if you like Tertius games, it does feel like one of his games. It's got special dice, it's got temple tracks, it's even got a section where with place the buildings down there and you're scoring for stuff that the buildings can see, which I can't remember what's the other game with it. Takano, which much like the pillars and the things on the outside. It's exactly taken from that, but they're bonus cards in this one rather than different to that. So yeah, it feels like him, but I do really, really like the dice mechanism in this, because the dice quality, the number of pips has no relation to how good they are. I mean, 6 is handy because you get to move to any place, but they essentially affect where you're moving to. A 6, and like a 5's no better than a 3. It depends entirely where you want to go. So while the dice have value, it isn't a strength value. Yeah, it's really good. The iconography does an incredible amount of heavy lift in this game, and you do have to pick it up because, yeah, you go as essentially pick a dice in the area you are, because that's where you're going next turn. Move your first dude, take your actions in the area you are, then follow them. There's no way of making this easier to learn than actually having a look at all these tons of icons on the board and roughly understand what's going on with them, which is tricky. Getting the main stuff's all right, but then when you add on top of that the bonus tiles, it does mean there's a lot of teaching and understanding up front. But it does feel it is a good game. I didn't not like it. I did have fun playing it. I don't know if it's something I want to play all the time. I don't think it's my favourite of his games, but I did enjoy it.
Okay, Steve.
It's good. You'll know if you like it. If you can follow Jonathan's explanation, you're probably going to like it because it is difficult. We've been taught it twice, and even after Jonathan had been taught it twice by two different people, he's like, so what do I do? At the start, you get a free building, and you get to pick a free building in a district. You don't get all the bonuses for building it, but you just get to start with a building of a specific colour. So you're like, okay, brilliant. Why am I building buildings of different colours? What's the benefit of me building here, there, and everywhere, all that sort of stuff? But the game does quite a good job of giving you a focus at the start. It gives you some end game things you can go to in the ziggurat. It gives you some cards you can score during the game, like big bonusy completion things, and it gives you this thing at the start of the game. So you can decide, all right, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but my focal point is I need a lot of yellow buildings if I'm going for that, and I need to build my buildings in this region if I'm going for this. And so you've got that first choice, and then it's quite a nice decision between which region you're going to go to. You're looking at the colours of dice you have, because certain regions, effectively, you're spending yellow dice in the yellow region. So what you can't do is flit about the board in lots of different places, because you pick a yellow dice up and you haven't got enough yellow dice to spend, then you move to the blue section, you pick a blue dice up, you don't have enough blue dice to spend unless you're using gold, and then you've got these odd yellow and blue dice. Well, what you really want to do is go back to the yellow section, pick up another yellow dice, and you've got two yellow dice, and you can spend it to do something. And so, well, I'm in the yellow section, I've got one yellow dice, if I can get another one, next time I go to the yellow section, I can use it to do a good action. I was like, okay, well, there isn't a dice that allows me to stay in the yellow section, so I've got to go somewhere else. And then you look at the dice and you think, well, which section can I go to from the yellow section, which can get me a dice that sends me back to the yellow section? And so I was thinking of that for quite a few times. I'm like, okay, well, this action's going to be a bit pants, but my next turn, I'm going back to the place where I've got 3 brown dice, I'm going to the brown section, I'm going to do some excellent stuff. There's a lot of ways to pick up residual bits here. All the technology cards, it's just nice. Whenever you do this action, get a claim token back, or get 2 points, or move up on this temple. And so if you focus on the technology, I think generally in any game with this sort of tech tree, you need to be picking some of them. In Tolkien or Teotihuacan, I'm pretty sure you can't do well without picking up some technologies, and what you're trying to do is instigate the things that your technologies are benefiting you from. I did quite well at this game because these guys didn't focus on the end game scoring, and I managed to pick up all 3 of them. And to do that, I built a lot of things, because building gets you boats as well. So you can sit in the harbour all the time, but you're not picking up enough blue dice quick enough to build all the things you need to build. You're not enough gold. But if you build the buildings, it's actually cheaper to get the ships and things like that. The more I talk about it, I wasn't going to rate it that highly. The more I talk about it, the more I've quite enjoyed myself with this game. It's been pretty good, but your first playthrough for one of these games is definitely a feeler, because you don't really know what you're doing until almost the end of the game.
Rating?
8.
Mark?
I think I'll give it a 7.
Okay. Yeah, I really struggled with this. I mean, I've played plenty of the other tea games, and generally I really like them. This one is probably my least favourite of them, and I'm trying to work out what that is. Like, I understand what I'm doing now, but the first couple of games are going to be a real struggle. Not just to teach, but as Steve says, it's like, and then what do I do? Like, even though you understand all the rules, it's like, how do I actually go about getting points in this game? At the start, it's not easy to see at all how you're getting points. Build buildings, though. I'll tell you now, that's how you're going to get points, but lots and lots of buildings. So I think it is very good. In terms of my personal enjoyment, as I say, I didn't enjoy it that much, because a lot of the time I just don't feel like there's a sufficient motivation for me to do something. I mean, I get building buildings is going to get you points. It feels almost too abstract for me. If you like this kind of heavy game, though, I think you will really like this. There's lots and lots to enjoy. Tons of variability with all the different tiles, the end game scoring things, the ships and things, the special abilities. They're going to be different every time you play it. So I think it's very well designed. So in terms of my rating, I'm probably going to fall on a 7, which is a combination between, I actually think it's probably a better game than a 7, but in terms of my enjoyment, I think it pulls it back to a 7, because I still, having played it a couple of times, don't really feel I know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. Anyway, that was Tabannusi.